Good afternoon, one and all, and welcome to episode 3 of Jerrod's Jaunt, a solo roleplay story, where I take my ranger, Jerrod Blackmire, on his quest using Cairn 2E as my core rulebook and Mythic 2nd edition GME as my main game master emulator. In this episode, I want to talk about the world that I'm putting Jerrod in. Within Cairn, Gal has set up a really good world building system, which requires a sheet of paper, some dice, pencil, and a bit of imagination. Now, with the sheet of paper, effectively you lay it out and then you drop a series of dice on the paper. Where those dice land, whatever number shows, it then takes you to a link within the book to tell you the general area that you're filling in. And then you make lines around those numbers to give divisions of the land. So in my case, my land was made up of 2 forest boundaries, scrubland, glens, moorlands, and alpine meadows and mountains. From that, you can expand on it a lot more. But the way I want to play this is I want some surprise. I don't want to have every single bit of detail of the map already laid out for me. I'm aware that my character, Jerrod, he knows the land himself. So he will know where a lot of these places are, but I want there still to be some surprise. So whenever I take Jerrod to a new location, I will be rolling with potential advantage or using the Mythic fate charts, a likelihood that he knows where these places are or what these places are and who's in these places. But there's still a degree of failure in that, so the surprise is always going to be there. Because of the way that I set the map out and the amount of land given over to glens, this is where I came up with the idea that I like my setting to be more Scottish Highlands. So you've got these large sweeping forest areas which break off into mountains and hills with glens sitting in the middle, which offers a valley of sorts, and then flanked with scrublands and moors. So potentially quite a, I wouldn't say dank, but it does lend to the grimdark setting that I've got in mind for him. I have 2 villages already marked out on the map. Well, one's a village, one's more the main town. Where he will be setting off effectively, and that will be the town of Glenwood. It sits on the corner of some woods, and it's in a glen. Glenwood, why not? It's as good a name as any. But that is where we find Jerrod when we start his adventure. It doesn't take too long to do to actually draw these maps, so it's a very good system, and it's one that you can actually take forward in other games that you want to play. Now, other aspects of the world building is the faction building, because there's got to be things that run against the natural norms of the area. So within the glens or the area that I've created with Jerrod, there are 3 factions at play, 2 of which I am focusing more on. But the 3 factions I've come up with, I've got the Legion of Darkness, good enough name. They are religious, they are judicious, but yet they're brutal. Their advantages are force and beliefs. So they're not people that you want to play around with. The other factions I've come up with is the Heated Order. So they are a bunch of rulers. Their traits are tenacious, but they're also incompetent. Sounds familiar. Can't think where from. And the third faction I've come up with is the Gold Endless Circle. Now, they are a faction of spies. So it's the spies and the rulers who are the 2 main factions that have led me to the outline of a story that I want Jerrod to play, or I want to play with him. And I think in the previous episode, I gave a very, very quick outlook, and that is that the rulers are looking for items to put together in order to open some kind of portal to bring back an old history, so to speak. It's very Lovecraftian in my head, what I've got going around. But Jerrod, who's been approached by this spy order, He's been asked to try and find these artifacts before these rulers do. So in order to stop any impeding doom. That's where I am with the factions and the lands. Next, I want to talk about my tables. Now, I've already drawn up my bestiary tables. As I said before, the bestiary within Cairn is actually really, really good. It's very well fleshed out. And what I've done is I've taken all of the creatures or combatants that I want from both the first edition bestiary and the second edition bestiary, and I put them into lists, and each list is linked to a specific area. So for example, mountains, hills, woods, forests, caves, graveyards, burial sites, swamps, bogs, moors, prairies and scrublands, towns, populous areas, river waters, and others. What I'm going to be doing with this is I'm going to be incorporating the Mythic adventure lists on the character lists. So everything within this will be randomized. For example, where I've got my list of swamps, bogs and moors creatures or combatants, I've chosen 13. So those 13 will go on the character list from the Mythic adventure lists. That will allow me to roll on that particular table to, again, get a various degree of randomization between the encounters. So I'm not going to be pulling same people or same creatures every single time. And I will do this for all of these. So for prairies and scrublands, I've got 14 encounters, potential encounters. Mountains, hills, 21 potential encounters. Woods and forests, 30 potential encounters. It might sound a lot, but a large portion of the area that Jerrod will be working in is going to be forest land anyway, and so on and so forth. I want to do the same with NPCs as well, and this may be where you guys can help, because the NPC tables I want to create, I want them to have some part of Jerrod's backstory. That is in the sense that he is a man of this area. So no, he would have gone to lots and lots of places. He would have met people who he's gotten really well with, people who could be potential enemies to him. Because what this will then do, this will then offer me the opportunity to create threads within the game. Little side quests that he could focus on, or be it him needing to help other people. It also helps later on with potential roles within the Mythic fabric, just in case I get an outcome that I want to pursue, but then I have to change it. And by changing it, it might change the dynamic of the game. So, as I said, with NPCs, I'm looking at people that he knows, be it potential family members, colleagues, people that he's encountered along the way, be them potential enemies, or, just travellers who he meets on the road. But I will use the same system. I'll collate this list of NPCs, put them on a separate adventure list, which I will then create to be used as we play. I can't think of any other lists I might make at the moment, because all the locations that he will go to, actually, no, that in itself, location lists, town lists. These are all little bits and pieces that the more I play, the more I get into it, the more it could actually be potentially too much, in which case I can edit it all down later on. But they also lend themselves to potential threads, potential quests that he can go on later on. So, like I said, I've done my bestiary, so I'm now looking for NPCs, which is something that you guys could potentially help out with. If you have any ideas of people that he knows, just leave them in the comment section, and I will roll up potential characters for them. The next area I want to cover is my travel system. I said in the previous episode that I wanted to try and develop a travel system that I could drop into any game, because I think it's, for me personally, it's an area in games which I find is lacking. Well, maybe I'm just not playing the right games or reading the right games. But even though Cairn does have a travel system involved, Yochai operates a point crawl system, which by and large, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a good system to use for quick gaming, which obviously Cairn is all about speed and gets where you want to be But me, I like something with a bit more detail behind it, because I think personally travel is just as much a part of the adventure as the encounter is, or the final goal is. I'm still playing around with this. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to use it or not, but the ideas I've come up with are fairly straightforward in my mind anyway. So the core loop of the travel engine I've come up with is that every journey is broken into phases: morning, afternoon, evening, and night. And the reason why I've gone for 4 is because divide 24 by 4, you get 6. 6 miles is roughly what you use in the standard hex crawl anyway. So I think if you were to draw out a hex map, or place a hex map over the map that you may have come up with using Cairn's world building system, it'd be easier to track. At the start of your journey, I've come up with 1 or 2 systems. You have a distance roll, which is you roll 1d20, and then each number represents the number of phases. So for example, on the d20, if you were to roll a 12, that would be 4, 8, 12, so every 4 phases equals a day. So that means that it will take you 3 days to get to that particular spot. And within that, this represents your route quality, your detours, terrain difficulty, weather delays, and navigation errors. The optional variants are for roads that you might know already. So instead of rolling a d20, you roll 2d6. If you want to use trackless wilderness, use a 1d20. For harsher terrains, 2d12. And for cross-country with no mapping, you don't know the routes, 3d6. I do have a daily weather chart, which has been broken down into seasons. Again, every morning you would roll on this chart depending on the season. But I have my chart, again, in the Cairn Warden Guide, you have weather tables at the back of the book. Next, we move on to terrain. For each phase, you roll on your topography, your terrain. On a 1, easier terrain, so this reduces the amount of phases by 1 because obviously you can get there quicker. On a 2 to 4, no change, you're in the same area. On a 5, harder terrain, so you add 1 to your phase journey. So for example, if you were going along a nice easy road and you suddenly found yourself hitting some bogs or going up some hills, it's going to take a bit more time, it's a bit more lethargic. And on 6, there's a major shift. So your complete topography is changed. From that, you then would roll on a terrain table. And so what I've got so far, you've got 8 different variations at the moment. We've got grassland, forest, hills, mountains, marsh, river valley, scrublands, and rocky uplands. Each terrain type can be modified because, as I said, with my monster tables, bestiary tables, I've changed them, or they're all linked to the particular areas that you can get to or where they live. So your encounters will change depending on where you go. This is just the rough outline anyway that I'm looking at. I mean, I have come up with additional pieces. Obviously, I have my encounter rolls, my hunting and foraging if need be with modifiers, the night phase for camping and sleeping, and so on and so forth. I won't go into great details with this right now because it might be something I'll change come gameplay, or I will do some testing within game to see how it works and maybe pick your brains as to what you think works and what doesn't work, because I'm still working on potentially using a Iron Sworn system as well of tracking, but I'm either A, thinking too much about this and I need to just get on and try it, or B, I do one and then I'll do the other to see which works out best. This is something which you guys can help me with because I'm all ears to listen to how you play and what will make this a usable system that then I can take this travel system and put it into other games. I will leave it at that for this particular week. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for all of those who have subscribed so far and all of you who like what I'm doing. So please share if you like what I'm doing, and if you have any comments, just leave them in the comment sections below. And I will speak to you soon. Ta-ta!